As usual, we are now prepared to commence today's sermon. Before we begin, let us all take a moment to remind ourselves of how fortunate we are to be students of the Great Master, the Accomplished One, the Awakened One, the Omniscient One, the Magnificent One, the Supremely Enlightened Lord Buddha, to make a solemn oath and a vow to ourselves to be lifelong students of his teaching with conviction that as we travel the path, we are able to achieve a happiness that we have never experienced before, a joy, a bliss that is unequaled by any other effort, achievement, or enterprise, reminding ourselves of how fortunate we are to be in this position, considering this a privilege rather than a right. Let us take a moment to be upstanding and recite the Dhirasa Vigata Mohasa stanzas to pledge our allegiance to the Lord Buddha and his teaching, to seek the refuge of the Noble Triple Gem, to observe the precepts, and to continue our journey to the end of suffering. Dhirassa vigata mohassa pabhinna khilassa vijita vijayassa anighassa susamachittassa buddha silassa sadhupanyassa Vesantarassa vimalassa bhagavato tassa savakohamasmi akatanktissa tusitassa vantalokamisassa muditassa kata samanassa manujassa antima sarirassa narassa anopamassa virajassa bhagavato tassa savakohamasmi akatanktissa tusitassa vantalokamissassa muditassa kata samanassa manujassa antima sarirassa narassa anopamassa virajassa bhagavato tassa savakohamasmi namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Please repeat all together and after me. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Dutiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Tatiyampi saṅghaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Saranagamaṇaṃ sampunnaṃ. Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Adinādāna vēramaṇī sikkhāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Kāmesu micchāchārā vēramaṇī sikkhāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhāpadaṃ samādhiyāmi. Surāmeraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Tisaranena saddhiṃ pañcasīlaṃ dhammaṃ sādhukaṃ surakkitaṃ kattvā appamādena sampādeta. Okay, you may now be seated. Also, before we begin today's sermon, as we did right at the start, let us once again appreciate that the reason we can consider ourselves to be blessed today is because we have the gift of Dhamma, which has been passed down to us through the noble lineage, which is the only path to our salvation, available to us today thanks to the kindness and generosity of those before us, our elders, our forefathers, and so on. Therefore, it is our duty today that we have received these gifts, the gift of Dhamma, to pass on this gift to others who are in need, as much as we do, or perhaps even more so. So as we embark on this journey to take another step towards our liberation, let us all be thankful to those who have helped us, supported us, assisted us in this infinitely long journey in samsara, remind ourselves of how indebted we are towards them, that they helped us to become who we are today, the good, kind-hearted, generous, virtuous people that we are today, or successful people at least that we are today, and to all those beings who in this long journey in samsara came to our help, assistance, rescue, support, and so on. Let us repay those debts by passing on this gift of Dhamma. Let us do so by inviting them to join us, wherever they may be in these 10,000 world systems. If there's the slightest opportunity, the slightest of chances that they're able to join this meritorious deed as it unfolds, may they do so. May they rejoice in these merits. May such merits help them to redeem themselves from the woeful planes, if they are today in such woeful states. And for all beings in the blissful plane, may they be able to listen to the teaching of the Buddha, understand it, comprehend it, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. So as I now make this invitation out to all of them, I ask you all to invite all those beings through your hearts and through your minds with deep compassion, gratitude, kindness, generosity, and charity. Invite them all to join us, to witness this meritorious deed, to acquire merits, to rejoice in them, and to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Samanta Chakravalesu Atra Gacchantu Devata Saddhammang Munirajassa Sunantu Sagga Mokkadang Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta Dhammasavana Kalo Ayang Bhadanta. And before we begin, let us also take a moment to seek forgiveness for our wrongdoings towards the noble ones, towards the Sambuddha-shasana, towards the noble triple gem. Because although we are today fortunate to be in the company of noble and moral ones, in this long journey we have come through in samsara, oftentimes than not we have been in the company of ignoble, immoral beings. And they defiled our minds with raga, dvesha, moha, aversion, desire, and delusion. Having been blinded and having succumbed to them, often we will have offended, desecrated, reviled, and slandered the noble ones. The consequences of such actions, either done deliberately or inadvertently, may be that today, as we try to take steps towards our liberation, those efforts are hindered excuse me, and it becomes difficult for us to achieve our salvation. So before we begin today's sermon then, let us all take a moment to gather up humility and humbleness within our minds, to acknowledge that although we are who we are today, in this long journey in samsara, we have not always been the kind, good-hearted, generous, and respectful, virtuous people. So, for the countless times we will have offended, slandered, insulted the Noble Triple Gem, the Samma Sambuddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, Arahata Buddhas, Anagamis, Sakrudagamis, Sotapannas, be they on the path of having attained the fruits, as well as the Buddha's ministry, the Sambuddha Shasana. May the Noble Ones forgive us. May we be forgiven for our wrongdoings, and may we be able to make progress towards our liberation. And as you take a moment to seek that forgiveness, I ask you all to resolve never to find yourself in such situations again, and therefore to keep yourself in good conduct, to keep yourself in good discipline, to determine to be ever mindful and watchful over your thoughts, such that you do not continue to make such mistakes in the future. And finally, let us all make a firm resolve, made through the course of this sermon. If there have been any gaps in my understanding, may through the course of this sermon such gaps be fulfilled. May I be able to better understand the Dhamma, better understand myself, better understand the suffering that I bring upon myself, and may the teaching help me to achieve the noble state of Sotapanna, and to redeem myself from the four great hells once and for all, and to embark upon the journey to the end of all suffering. And may for all those of you who may have already achieved that noble state, may through the course of this sermon you be able to fulfill the subsequent stages and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. With that firm resolve in your minds, I invite you all to prepare yourselves to listen to the sermon. Okay. So, today is a meditation week. I hope you have all made yourselves comfortable or found a suitable place for you to reflect on the Dhamma, which is after all what meditation is. The significance of meditation on the Buddhist path to liberation is that we must always understand that our teachers, all the way back to the Buddha, can only show us the path. That is what happens when you listen to the sermons. Every sermon you listen to with full attention, and every sermon you listen to with reflection, you are able to see further down the path. It's as if someone were to stand with you at a junction when it's dark and they were to hold a torch in their hand, and when you ask, what is the path? This person who is here to guide you will point the light in the direction of the road and say, this is where you need to go. They'll turn the torch towards the road and they'll hold it in such a way that you can see as further away as possible. With every sermon you listen to, the further you can see down this road, all the way to the end. But if you haven't started to travel the road, you're not going to get any closer to your destination. Seeing is one thing, doing is another. The thing is this though, one who has seen cannot be prevented from doing, because after all beings seek the one thing, and that is happiness. So obviously the question that is being asked of the guide is, which path is it to happiness? And so when the torch is held and the light shone onto the road, when the path to happiness has been shown and it's obvious, then it makes little sense if there's someone who stood still at the junction but does not feel enthused, that does not feel energetic, does not feel motivated to walk down the road. Chances are, when that is the case, he has not yet seen the road. This is why without a teacher, even without a teacher, within 7 occurrences of existence, or bhava, this person who has seen the end of the road will most certainly walk the path and complete their journey. Now, as much as the guide might try, the end of the road, when they hold the torch right at the beginning of the road, the end point of this road is only very faint. It's visible, but it's very faint because you're quite a distance away from it. So for it to become brighter and more clear, there is only one thing that can be done. And you know that. You know what that is. You need to start walking. With every step you take, it gets brighter and clearer, and your destination becomes all the more visible and real. Of course, until you have seen the destination, it makes little sense to say that someone has started walking the path. That is impossible. But once you start walking the path, things that were only visible faintly will become clearer, will become more visible. And as you start walking the path and get close to your destination, your conviction on the path, on the destination, as well as your teacher or the guide that pointed you, continues to grow. Because what was promised, the promised land, if you like, you start smelling it, you start seeing it, you can start feeling it. So that is the nature of this journey. So therefore, meditation has of course received lots of interpretations, but the meditation that we are talking about through our programs is when you make those steps on the path to your destination. That is what we refer to as meditation. Listening to the sermons is all good and well, because of course first you need to be seeing the journey, the path, the road. You need to have seen the destination, however faint it may be. Even in the far away distance, you need to have seen the destination. Otherwise there is no motivation, there is no ambition. But once you have seen that, what's left to do is really for you to walk the road, for you to walk the path. All talk, no walk. You can see the resemblance here. So your guide, your teacher can give you a lot of talk, explain to you this is how you need to walk the path, explain to you this is how you need to get your destination, these are the milestones that you will come across. These may be some of the pitfalls you need to watch out for. This is how you need to travel this path carefully, watchfully and diligently. So that's a lot of talk. But the teacher can't walk the walk for you. That you're all going to have to do individually, with instruction of course. But you're going to have to do it individually. You're going to have to do it by yourself. So our meditation programs are for that. Because I do appreciate that not all of you have the time during the course of the week to put time to reflect on the Dhamma that we delivered through these sermons and discourses. So we started off the meditation program to carve out some time from the Sunday sessions, which you have already committed. And those who you have duties and obligations and responsibilities towards, they have already permitted, accepted and acknowledged that a Sunday afternoon is yours to do whatever you like with. So that much, that's in the bag. Therefore, we carve out some time on Sunday afternoons once a month. Our regulars will know this, to allow you time to reflect on the Dhamma. But of course, I will give you instruction along the way. I will guide you, but you must understand you have to walk it. And you can't sleepwalk either. You know what I meant by that. Right. So, what we're going to be doing today is, I want you to start to reflect on some of the things we spoke about week before last and 1 or 2 weeks prior to that. Week before last was hopefully an eye-opener for most of you. I did give you some homework. I wonder if you had a moment to go and do that. To get a piece of paper, sheet of paper, and write on top of it, my toys. Did you find any? I haven't completed my sentence. Did you find any that aren't your toys? Anything and everything that makes you happy would have been a toy for you. So hopefully that was an eye-opener. And what I really asked you to do last week was to be observant. Just take a moment to observe the world that's going on around you. Things that people do to keep themselves happy, and how deluded they are. So what I'm going to be asking you to do today is to continue where we left off the previous week, and really to start to put some of those thoughts, put some of those ideas into practice, to start reflecting on them. So first things first. If we go all the way back, we talked about a number of different concepts. And among them was, remember I asked you the question, where's Sam? Previous to that I asked you, who's on the chair? So today we're going to take some time to reflect on these questions and the answers that come to you as you ask these questions of yourself. So you'll be sat wherever you are right now. I'm assuming you're all sat down listening to the sermon. Take a moment to ask yourself, who sat down? Who's listening to the sermon? Now we do this one step at a time. Imagining there's a mirror that's placed opposite to you, you can see something in it. This is what we have always thought is us, or is me. This is our figure, our picture, what we look like, our bodies, and the form that is visible to us. It's not just visible, it's also tactile. You can touch it, you can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it, you can see it. So through all five senses you are able to sense this physical presence. Right? So if you just held your hand up in front of your face, you can see your hand. So that's evidence that this is my hand. I can see it when I want to. And if you try to move a finger, it moves. So there's visible evidence that this body obeys your commands. Whatever commands come through your brain, from your mind, this body obeys these commands. So you can see that. So through the sense of sight, you have confirmation that this has to be something to do with you. If you were to hold or to shut your ears for a moment, wait until I've finished, otherwise you won't be able to hear what I'm saying. Or plug your ears for a moment, you'll be able to hear you breathe. You'll hear your breath rising and passing away, coming in and going out. You don't necessarily do that now. You've done that before many times, right? So you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you're also able to hear your heartbeat. If it's very quiet, in a very quiet place, you can hear that. Or sometimes just tiny body movements. Sometimes your tummy rumbling. You can hear these noises. Or you can even click your fingers, and you can hear the sounds that come from your body. Or perhaps when you pass wind, sounds that emanate from your body. So there's now audible evidence that this body obeys your commands. So it has to be your body then. If you are to hold the tips of your fingers to your nose, you'll be able to smell something. Sometimes you may be all too familiar with that smell, therefore you have become so acclimatized to it, you don't smell anything odd. But normally if you were to hold someone else's hand to your nose, you can smell something, because that's the body order. So just because you have gotten used to it does not mean that there is no smell coming from it. So clearly then, the sense of smell also gives you evidence that there's a body which is yours. Then there's taste. If you have to lick your fingertips, or at least there's a natural taste within the mouth, your saliva, you can taste what this body feels like, or tastes like even. That is again evidence that this body exists and it is mine. So you can say, this is my taste. This is what I taste like. And finally, the sense of touch. Of course, you can sense yourself all over. Perhaps not your internal organs, unless of course you get some sort of swelling, and then you start to feel the pain, you start to feel their presence. But otherwise, the outside of your body, your skin, as you rub your hands together, you can feel both. You can feel both ends. So if you're rubbing your hands together, you can feel your left hand on your right hand and your right hand on your left hand. So both the receiving and the giving, they're both felt, which is very strong evidence that this body has to be me, has to be mine. However, in our previous sermons, we gave and provided sufficient evidence to break this notion, this misconception that the body is me. We all sense a presence, and that presence cannot be the body. We prove that to ourselves by taking a couple of examples, which I'll remind you briefly. Someone loses a limb, they don't feel any less of themselves. Someone gets a haircut, they don't feel any less themselves. Someone takes a body wash, quite a lot of skin cells are washed away, but they don't feel any less themselves. In fact, when you're looking at someone, whatever you see, skin-wise, whatever you see, the moment they take a wash, all that's gone down the drain. So you don't see the same person after they've taken a wash. But you don't feel that it's a different person either. So then clearly you could not have been referring to what met the eye. So to the third person as well as the first person, to consider that this body is the self is a deep misconception. I want you all to take a moment to reflect on that. Some of you may have practiced this ever since we did this, I think, some weeks ago in one of our meditation sessions. But I want you to practice this. Doing it once isn't going to do much. It needs to come through practice. So what I want you to do now then is to find a comfortable position for you all to be either stood or sat in. It does not matter, just don't lie down, which is not an ideal position to be meditating in anyway, unless of course you have a bad back or some reason why you cannot get out of bed. Otherwise, pick one of these two positions, either standing or seated. And what I want you to do now is to take a moment to study your body, all the parts that you are knowledgeable of. There may be bits and pieces on the inside which you don't know anything about. You can't remember what they're called. Don't worry about any of that. There's plenty you can already see on the outside. You know you have bones in your body. You know you have muscles in your body. You can of course see your hair, your skin, your teeth. Maybe not your teeth, but you know you have teeth. You can sense it. So the bits that you don't need any further evidence to know you have, I want you to reflect on them for a moment. And I want you all to contemplate on the fact that these things that you sense, right, all the parts of your body, are components which hang together to give you the impression that you have a body. So I'll repeat that. All these parts of your body, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, hair, forehead, right, skull, bones, nerves, blood vessels, and the other parts that you know, right, your toes, your body hair, stomach, intestines, all the parts that you can think of. What matters is not that you need to make a categorical list of all the different parts of your body. That's not what I'm asking you to do here. The bits that you know, you don't need to make further study, right? Most of it, it's obvious to you that you have these parts of you, but you don't even need to know what they're called. What I want you to do is, I want you to take a moment to reflect on how these parts, they are components which hang together, and in their unison, they give you the impression that there's a body as a single unit. But in reality, it is nothing other than bits and pieces, lots of parts, which are hung together with muscles, tendons, nerves, right, the wires and the gum and the glue that sticks and binds the bits of your body together. And of course there's the skin which keeps it all in place on the outside without oozing and leaking out. So I want you to look at your body as if you were looking at an object. Don't think, the general notion is that you're looking at yourself as you observe yourself in the mirror, right? When you're getting ready to go somewhere, as you brush your hair, as you put on your makeup, okay, as you put on your jewelry, you feel like you're adorning yourself, don't you? You don't take a moment to think that actually I'm putting lipstick on a part of this body. You don't think that you're brushing the hair on a part of this body, or the hair is a part of this body. You always feel like I'm brushing my hair, I'm combing my hair, I'm shaving my beard. This is how you normally feel. Even if you think about, I'm going to take a wash. Is it the I that's I'm going to take a wash? Or are you going to wash this body? The action is no different. You're doing the same thing, but the way you look at it makes a whole lot of difference. So are we all ready for that then? Once again, I want you all to take a moment. You can do this as you're walking up and down, so you can do your walking meditation if you like, if that's preferable to you. As you walk, ask yourself, am I walking, or are the parts of my body moving to a certain, or in a certain, it's called a gait, in a certain way, in a certain fashion, to a certain rhythm, such that after a given duration of time t, this body has displaced a certain distance, and that you say is walking. If it happens at more than a certain, or if it takes less than a certain time, you say you're running. So you see, I'm asking you to break down what seems apparent on the outside, analyze it, and try and understand what are the bits, what are the units that make up these components, or what seems the whole, the holistic view. I want you to go deeper, go in from the holistic view, and start to see the components that make up and give this impression that there's a whole here. Not H-O-L-E, whole as in the complete thing, W-H-O-L-E. Start to see the components. Start to see how it's all made up. Okay? So whatever position you're seated in right now, start with that. If you're seated, are you seated? Or are the bits of this body, the components that make up this body, they are in such a position? Some of them vertical, some of them horizontal, right? Isn't that what's really going on? How can you say you're seated? What do you look like when you're seated? So really it's not you, it's not that sense of I that you feel is seated. It's the body. Not even your body, it's the body. It's the body that is seated. The body is walking. Okay? So, to whatever extent you understand what I'm asking you to do here, I want you to do it to that extent. Don't worry if it does not make a whole lot of sense, that's fine. It'll come with practice. So, let us all take a few minutes. Whatever position you're in, pick a comfortable position, standing, walking, sitting, one of these three. Just don't go into the infamous fourth. And ask yourself, is this me that's in this position? Or is it the body that's in this position? What are the various bits that are in a position, a particular position, which when taken as a whole, as a unit, give the impression that the body is in that position. As you're walking, if you're trying to practice some walking meditation, think to yourself how the muscles contract and they expand and they pull on the bones, and how the action of walking comes into being. Are you walking, or are the parts of your body moving to a certain rhythm, and at the end of a certain duration of time, it looks like you walked? Right, so I want you all to take a moment to break that down into the constituent parts and start to see things as they really are, rather than what your vijnana, this wizard, makes it look like. So if you're all ready for that, let's take a moment to reflect on that. I will give you a reminder when it's time to move on to the second part of the meditation session. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Let me offer some help to those who may need it. Stay where you are. You don't need to make any changes. If you're struggling to do what I've asked you to do, take a moment to think about the clothes that are on your body. Just take a moment to think about the clothes that are on your body. Do you feel like those clothes are you? No, so clearly you feel a distinction there. There's me, and these are my clothes. I can take them off whenever I want. I can do things to them and nothing would happen to me. So putting them in the laundry, or cutting it up, or burning it, does nothing to you physically. So clearly, without any effort, you're able to understand that you, assuming that you are your body for the moment, and your clothes are not the same thing. They are very different things. So you are clad in your clothes. Now the same concept I want you to apply to the body and your mind. Like your body is clad in your clothes, I ask you to think of your mind as being clad with your body. So the muscles, the bones, the various organs, all the fluids that flow throughout the body, all of that. You can see it's got a shell, almost like a turtle that lives in a shell. Like a turtle living in a shell, I want you to think of your mind living inside this body. This is what I'm asking you to do. And then look at the various components of this body. It's how these components hang together, that configuration, if you like, is what today you have come to accept as being me. This is me. You must understand now through the Dhamma that your mind can exist without the body. Perhaps not in the Kama realm, the sensual realm. In the Arupa realm, there is no physical body. But the mind exists just as well as it does in the other realms. So that gives us evidence that you don't need the body for the mind to exist and prevail. I want you all to try and make that distinction. This is a very important one. A very important one. Make that distinction. Try and break this connection that the body is me. That way, when things happen to your body, they affect you less and less as you practice this. You will then be able to see it as something happening to an artifact, an item, an object, rather than seeing it and sensing it as something happening to you. So that is what I want you to think about right now. So use those analogies if they help, and continue your reflection along those lines. As you do so, reflect on the things that we have spoken about in the sermons. You'll remember I asked you how old you are. Before you listen to those sermons, when someone would have asked you how old you are, you would have readily spurted an answer, because you actually felt that you were that old, whatever age you said you were, whether that was 20, 50, 70, 80. But just like the clothes that you wear, they get frayed, and then at some point you need to discard them and get new ones. But nothing's happened to you. Right? You might stain your clothes, they might get torn, buttons can come off, things can happen to your clothes, but that does not affect you physically. Likewise, things will happen to this body, and I want to try to refrain from using the words your body. I want you to start to think in terms of this body rather than my body. Because when there's no my, how can there be a my body? We don't need to go that far, but I want you to start to think of it in terms of this body. So how old are you is not a question that you can answer. Whatever number you give out, is that not how old this body is? Can you come outside of your body for a moment and look at it from the outside? Okay, now here's what I want you to do. You will know if you have a wound somewhere on your body, maybe a rash, or maybe you've injured yourself somewhere. Perhaps you've got a bad neck, a bad back, some kind of physical ailment or disability. Can you observe it rather than experiencing it? Can you think of this body as just another body? So the body next to you, if you're sat next to another body, and this body are just two bodies. It just so happened to be that your mind lives in this body for the time being. Just as you change your clothes, you do know that at the end of the next however many years, you're going to change clothes. You're going to change bodies. If you recently had a surgery, perhaps, where is it? Who was the surgery done to? Come outside of the body and now answer that question. Who was the surgery done to? So don't wait to hear my next words. I want you to think along these lines. I'm guiding you and you need to walk. And if you do this genuinely, then the next instruction you need will come to this mind. That's the way it works. Let me ask you another question. So come out of your body to answer this question. Hopefully you're already outside now. So look at this body. You understand I'm saying this because I don't want to say your. And there's a very specific reason for that. I want you to break that connection. What did you have for breakfast? What did you have for your last meal? What did you have for your last meal? Did you really have a meal? Did you take a meal? You? Can you remember how you might have been fed as a young child? Perhaps by a parent or by an elder, an adult. Now, I want you to imagine, visualize this. The next meal, you, and now I'm talking about you, have it on a plate, and you're now feeding it to this body. Either using a hand or a spoon, right? You're feeding mouthfuls to this body. You got to do this having come outside your body though. So you need to be able to visualize you standing or sitting in front of your body, opposite to it. And you can see, again, not your body, the body. You can see the body opposite to you. And now you are feeding it. After all, who needs food? Is it fair to refer to what you are looking at now a who? Can we address it as a who? Okay, what about the body next to you, or next to that body? Think of, if there's no one sat next to you, then think of someone, a close relation or a member of the family, right? That body. What sense is there to feel more of a connection to one than to the other, when they're both just objects? They both need to be fed, don't they? As I said, don't wait for my next words. I want you to think along these lines. Be free to think. It is only your understanding that needs to be framed. So right understanding, once you have that, now please feel free to think. Let your mind loose. Let it explore within the boundaries set by your teacher. Don't go astray, areas which are yet uncharted, because you may get lost. So within the boundaries you have been allowed to roam freely. So when I'm talking about what did you have for breakfast and feeding, you're free to go and think about being dressed, being washed, sheltered. All of that is part of the practice for meditation. I'm giving you a structure for you to build upon. Now I want you to visualize this. Can you see some cables drawn between this body and you? Some wires, if you like. These cables, these wires, they carry signals. You've got to do this sitting outside the body, okay? You don't necessarily need to see where they terminate on your end, but you can see where they terminate on the other end, on the far end. You can see that some of these wires, they terminate at the eye lobes. And there's another wire that goes to the ears. Let's say a pair, left and right, so you can hear stereo. Then there's a wire that goes to the nose. There's another wire that goes to the tongue. There's another wire that goes to the skin. All the tactile bits of the skin. Everywhere that it can pick up a tactile sensation. So just for simplicity, let's say it's connected to the chest. You get the idea, right? So this is picking up all the tactile sensations. See if you can visualize this. So once again, there's the body sat in front of you, so you're standing facing it, and you can see some wires connected at either end. Don't worry too much about the near end, but if you look at the far end, see where these wires terminate. So these 5 wires they carry signals. Now here's what I want you to do. I want you to take, in this imaginary world of yours, right? So we're still visualizing, don't run to the kitchen now. I want you to take a lemon, slice it in half. Can you see the tongue on the body? Now go and rub that lemon on that tongue, just ever so briefly. Okay, what did you sense? What happened in the physical world, and what did you sense? So you see, in the physical world is where the lemon came in, and there was the tongue, and then you rub that lemon on the tongue. A signal that initiated at the tongue then traveled the wire, and it came to you. Now you tasted something. You picked up a sensation, did you not? So you witnessed an event, which was the rubbing of the lemon on the tongue, and a signal fired. The signal traveled the wire. These are all events. They are all events that happen in the physical world. The signal traveled the wire, and it came to you, and then you sensed lemon. So where did we put the lemon? On you or on the tongue? Where's the tongue? Is it on you or on the body? Do you see that for you to sense this taste, how many factors need to line up in perfect order? What if the signal fired before the lemon touched the tongue? What if the wire wasn't there? Or what if the wire was broken? What if the tongue didn't function properly? What if the lemon was too faint? It was too diluted. wasn't concentrated enough. So there's a threshold that needs to be reached for a signal to travel the wire. So if it doesn't reach that threshold, you don't cross the gate. See, now you can see all these things happening, because you are now an observer. You're not an experiencer. You are now observing what's going on. You're taking an analytical view. Now try doing that with the rest of the 5 organs. So how are we doing? Did you have a go with the rest of the organs? I have a question for you to ponder about. Do you see any other purpose to the body that is sat in front of you than to bring these signals to you? Let me repeat the question. What we have been doing thus far is we ventured outside of the body. Now we are an observer rather than an experiencer. We can see that there are wires drawn from that terminate at the body and the other ends with us. They carry signals to us. What I want you to think about now is, what is the purpose of the body that is in front of you? What is the purpose? What is it here to serve? What function does it have? Because there's nothing in this world that does not have a purpose. If something exists in this world, it must have a purpose. Anything that does not have a purpose vanishes. It disappears. Scholars of evolution will understand this concept. Things which are of no use, they vanish. So only things that have purpose exist in this world. So you're looking at the body, you can see those wires that are drawn from the far end to you, which bring signals, and what you did just a moment ago was stimulate the 5 organs, and each time you will have noticed a signal travel from the organ to you. And what I asked you to do there is to observe whether the physical stimulus happened to you or the physical body, which is what you're looking at. What purpose does this body that you're looking at serve? Can you hear a bird chirping in the background? For that noise to be heard, where should the bird be chirping? By you or by the side of the body? Which end should it be? So if the bird flew to you and started to chirp, what good is that? Would you hear it? You wouldn't even know that there's a bird. For you to be able to hear this sound, the bird has to be chirping next to the ear of the body. Now imagine this, let's just take this one step further. I want you to think about the purpose as I talk to you about this. So this is all part of the meditation, right? I want you to contemplate on this. This body, as I said, we've drawn wires, Let's say we carry this mass and we put it into a soundproof room. Okay? And we've drawn a wire from that room out to our side. So we are now on this side of the room, and that body, you can no longer see that body, it's on the other side of the room. But the wires have been drawn. So really, what you would be seeing right now is the inside of the wall, wouldn't you? Physically, if you were seeing something, I don't mean the seeing through, contemplating, the contemplation. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to see your body anyway. See the body anyway. Because the eye is not on you, the eye is on the body. So the eye is facing you, the eye is not facing the body. So you wouldn't be able to see the body, right? You get that, hopefully. So when the body is on the other side or the inside of the room, with the eyes attached to it, the ears attached to it, the nose attached to it, tongue attached to it, and you're on the outside of this room, except for the wires which connect the two of you, there is nothing else that connects you. Now, that bird, which side of the room should we put the bird for you to be able to hear the sound? Clearly the inside, right? Or is it the outside? Which side? Indeed, the inside. So we put it on the inside. Why? As you answer that question, I want you to answer the other question I asked you a moment ago. What is the purpose of this body? Why did you put the bird on the inside? Because the ear is on the inside. So what is the purpose of this body then? If you wanted to look at something, say a flower, where would you need to put this flower? A flower vase. Where would you need to put this flower vase? On the inside of the room or the outside of the room? Why? Because, okay, so what is the purpose of this body then? If you could hear your mother saying, I've made some cake for you, it's a lovely cake, smells delicious, would you like to have some? Now as the mother approaches you, so the mother is also on the outside, what would you have to ask your mother to do? Amma, please can you go and leave it in the room, on the table, in the room. But she will be saying, but you're here. Yeah, I'm here, but what? The body is on the other side. So what is the purpose of the body then? So you see, the mother's holding this freshly baked cake, right up against you. So you now on the outside, this is what you sense as I, okay? So the cake is held up to you. Can you see it? No. Can you smell it? Would you like to try and taste it? Can you touch it? No. So, for any of these things to happen, See, so clearly the cake is right up against the eye. The presence, that presence, it's right up against the eye, the presence. I'm here, and here's the cake. But you can't even see it. You can't smell it. And the mother's saying, it smells, oh God, my God, this smells so nice. You must have a piece. Now what would you say? Hurry up already and take it in. Come on, hurry up, please, take it in, take it in. Take it in the room. But you're here. Yeah, but take it into the room. So what is the purpose of the body then? What if one of the wires, say the tongue wire, or the nose wire, what if those wires got damaged, or we removed them entirely? Now the mother comes with the cake. What would you ask her to do now? I've got some cake for you. And you know that the tongue wire and the nose wire have been removed for some reason. It's not working. So they have been taken out until they bring in spare parts. So what do you do now? Would you still ask your mother, hurry up, take it in? You wouldn't, would you? Unless, of course, the body wire was sending you signals indicating that there's a pain that's coming from the part of the stomach, because it's empty or partly empty, and the gastric juices are starting to irritate its inner lining. Unless that were the case, you'd have no interest in whatever it is that mother has brought you. So you just say, I'm not interested. But say, as you just said that, the guy who went to bring the spare parts, he comes back and he repairs or fixes these two wires. Now the mother didn't move an inch. She stood there with the cake in her hands. Now you know it's going to work. Now I say, okay, now hurry up. Take it back into the room, please. So again, what is the purpose of the body? Can you now begin to make the distinction? Say the wire was fine, but the nose stopped working. Would you keep the nose that's not working, or would you ask to have it replaced? I really want you to think about this now. So the wire is fine, the cake is also fine. Okay? But the nose is not working. The body is on the other side of the room, or the inside of the room, you're on the outside. So when mother takes the cake into the room, you can't smell it. When you can't smell it, you know that something's not right. You quickly run a diagnostic check, and the result comes nose dysfunctional. Would you like to keep that nose, because it has served you for so many years, or would you like to have it replaced as soon as possible? What does the body serve? What is the purpose of the body? So really, do you like your nose? Why? Why do you like your nose? When the diagnostic results came back and said nose dysfunctional, no, but I still like my nose, would you keep that nose? Or without a second thought, would you ask for it to be replaced as soon as possible because there's a cake fuming and you need to inhale its smell, the aroma. You want to smell it. But the parts aren't working. But that nose, that part, it served you for the last 26 years. Are you in love with the nose? Or are you in need of what it's here to serve, its purpose? I promise you, if you can really understand what I'm trying to explain to you here, this sentimental attachment between you and this body will break down. You really do have a sentimental attachment to it, which goes beyond its purpose. You see it as you. How can it be? We are running a test to confirm that. This is an experiment. So it does not matter that this nose has served you for 26 years, right? If you can't smell, if you can't take in the aroma of the cake, what would you do? You would have it replaced as soon as possible. I mean, if you could, would you not stock some noses just in case? So that at the bat of an eyelid, you could replace your nose. If that were possible, would you not keep a few extra? Now think about all the other things that you make use of. Your car, it's got extra things, has it not? It's got a spare wheel to begin with. See? Usually you'll find a toolkit somewhere where they'll have some spare bulbs in case some got burnt out. Would it not be nice if you could have a spare nose, just in case? Wouldn't that be handy? What about a spare tongue? When you need it, all you need to do is just break the packing, take it out of the box. You might need to drop it in liquid for a little while just to get it working, and then screw it in. And then you're good as new. Wouldn't that be nice? Would you not opt for that if that were available as a choice? Of course. Question you'd be asking me is, Swaminatha, why do they not do it wholesale? So what is the purpose of the body then? I want you to start to look at the body as a device, as an instrument, as a tool, as a thing that you make use of. That's all it is. I want you to give up all these sentimental nonsense and foolish attachments. I'll tell you something that will really make you think. Jump out of your seat. You're on the outside of the room, right? But you are seeing the inside of the room, right? Which is because your eyes are on the inside, facing the wall. Let's imagine. I want you to send a command to your eye to turn left or right. Can you see another body there? Can you see that other body there? Isn't that who you call your wife? But where's your wife? She's outside the room. So what are you looking at? How about you touch that hand? Oh, send a signal. Send a signal from the outside of the room to the inside of the room, which is where the body is. There's another body there, can't you see? Right, send a signal to extend the arm and with the hand touch the hand of that body. That makes a whole lot of sense, doesn't it? Where's your wife? She's also on the outside, picking up signals, because the body touched her, the body, and that triggered a stimulus. A signal traveled the wire, that went to her, who's on the outside of the room. See, the two of you on the outside could sit right next to each other and makes no difference. Because what you crave for is the two bodies on the outside to be touching each other. Again, what is the purpose of this body? So we didn't answer that question. Let's answer that question and come back here. What is the purpose of the body? The purpose of the body, which we have through various experiments now and tests now proved, is to bring or interpret the sights, the sounds, the smells, the taste and the touch. These were the things that came into the room. You would have done that on your own, right? what the body does is convert them to signals, and then it sends it down the wire to you. That body on the other side, on the left, what is that body doing? Sight, sound, smells, taste and touch, converting them to signals and sending them down the wire to the person that's on the outside. So it makes a whole lot of sense then to touch someone, doesn't it? To hug someone. Have you seen JCB drivers? You know, those people who drive those huge land movers. And they can, those backhoes, if you like. How do they move the parts of the machine? They've got controls. So they pull those levers, and then there's the hydraulic system which go into action, which move the physical parts of those machines. So extensions and contractions, foldings and bendings, twistings and turnings, right? Movings and stoppings, all these things are all done by using a bunch of levers. Little do they realize that what's driving the backhoe is another backhoe. Have you seen two of those vehicles? The drivers sat in those two vehicles, right? In the driving seat, pulling their levers so that the arms of these two machines can touch each other and play with each other. So the driver in one backhoe, he pulls his lever, the other guy in the other backhoe, he also pulls his lever, and that extends the arms, right? And then they touch each other, and they rub against each other for a little while. And then the vehicle twists left, right, left, right, left, right, right? So allowing these arms to rub against each other. You seen them do that? No, but he does that when he gets home. You ever driven backhoe? Sure? Hello? Sure? What is your full-time job? So if you're telling me it makes no sense for one driver to be extending the arm of one backhoe or his backhoe, and for the other driver to be extending that arm, and for these two arms to be playing in midair, right, rubbing against each other. The bucket of one rubbing against the arm of the other. If you're telling me that makes little sense, hello? What are you doing? Isn't that what you're doing now? Sat outside the room? The two of you? I'll tell you what, right? Let's do this. We're all going to look away, right, to give the two of you some privacy, right? And you can start pulling on your levers, and you can ask the other person to start pulling on their levers. How about that? We'll all look away, in case. Aren't you glad the wires work? Otherwise you wouldn't know what the hell's going on inside the room, right? Don't you see that this body is overrated? What is the meaning of all these sentimental attachments to this body? How nonsensical it is. Read between the lines if you can, okay? I've never seen a backhoe driver using his levers to extend the arm of the backhoe to rub the backhoe itself. I've never seen that happen. But what happens when the guy gets home? I tell you folks, this is all madness. Are you beginning to understand how sensuality is a complete and utter madness? It's blindness. It's blindness of what's really going on. It's blindness of the truth. Because when sensuality kicks in, intelligence goes out the door. It's like this mind ain't big enough for the two of us. Only one of us can be here. When sensuality comes in, intelligence out the door. When intelligence or wisdom come in, now sensuality out the door. This is all a made-up nonsense. I've given you enough to think about now. Now I want you to think on your own. Develop on the analogies. Think through those examples and metaphors. Apply them to yourself. I want you to break the connection, that sentimental connection between you and your body. Because it's not your body after all. It's just a body. continue with your contemplation. Now I want to take you one step further. What was the purpose of this body again? What is the purpose? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. And to convert them to signals. Send them down the wire so that you can pick them up and experience them. So you can see the experiencing bit really happens on the outside. On the inside, it's simply an event. Except for the sense of touch, whose force can be increased or reduced. Increased even to the point where it inflicts injury to the body. The other organs are not at any risk, are they, from the stimuli that come into the room? So no amount of sights can cause any harm to the eye organ. I'm not talking about extremely bright light which can cause death of the cells on the retina. I'm not talking about that sort of stuff. I'm talking about just generally. I'm not talking about the luminosity of light here. I'm talking about sights. Okay, no variety of sight, because there are numerous sights. There is not a single sight out there that can cause any amount of grief or pain to the eye organ. There's no sound. Again, I'm talking about variety, not referring to the decibels or the loudness of the sound, which can cause harm to the eardrum. That's not what I'm talking about. If you just take sound and the variety of sound as being the object of our discussion here, that variety cannot cause any harm, pain or agony to the ear organ. There's not a smell out there that can cause any pain to the nose organ. There's not a taste out there that can cause any pain, suffering to the tongue organ. So you see, except for the physical sense of touch, which again happens if it exceeds a certain amount. So let's leave the touch out for a moment and focus on the other four for the time being: sight, sound, smell, taste. Given that these four stimuli, their purpose is to bring in a stimulus. That's essentially what it is, a stimulus to the organs. And this is the job of the organs, taking nourishment from the rest of the body mass, taking shelter from the rest of the body mass, seeking protection from various airborne pathogens and various other diseases and so on, or injury from physical contact, from the body mass. So essentially, if you disregard the 5 sense organs, the remainder of the body, this body mass, is there to nourish, protect, and preserve these 5 organs. So it's a home for these 5 organs, so that they can live. For what purpose again? The whole thing exists to bring in these signals to the outside, to take the signals to the outside. If it doesn't serve that purpose, then there is no purpose in this whole thing being. So that is the purpose it serves. So the 4 sense organs, sight, sound, smell, taste, we have left out touch only to avoid any confusion, because you may misunderstand what aspect of touch I'm talking about here. So let's take the other 4. You must understand now that suffering cannot be created on the inside of the room. This is not physical suffering, mental suffering. It cannot be created on the inside of the room. Vexation cannot be created on the inside of the room. Because eye, ear, nose and tongue cannot create suffering. Sight, sound, smell, taste cannot create suffering. The mechanism with which these stimuli are converted to a message that the thing on the outside of the room, that's you, can understand, does not create suffering. Those wires that carry the signals, they don't carry suffering. They are incompatible. So sight, sound, smell, taste, eye, ear, nose, tongue, the wires that carry the signals, and the signal itself, they're all incompatible with suffering. They don't know what suffering is, because it's in a different realm. Suffering gets created not on this side of the room, it's on the outside of the room. So how come suffering that did not come from sight, through the eye, through the wire, almost out of nowhere, originated at the receiving end? A sound which did not have suffering, the ear which did not have suffering, the wire which did not have suffering, and even the signal which did not have suffering, at the receiving end, when that signal is received, suffering is created. So you can see then that this is not a natural process. Ignorance and attachment are diseases of the mind. They are not diseases of the body. Ignorance and attachment are the constituent ingredients of suffering. They are the ingredients of suffering. Ignorance and attachment are not in any of the components that are on the inside of the room, because they cannot infiltrate the room. Ignorance and attachment can only have an effect on the things that are on the outside of the room. So then there cannot be such a thing as an ugly flower or a beautiful flower. Because where's the flower? Remember when the mother brought cake? Where did you ask the mother to take it? Leave it here or take it inside? Hurry up. You said take it inside. So the cake is on the which side of the room? On the inside of the room. But there are no components, there are no ingredients which can create suffering on the inside. So there is no cake that can either be delicious or that can be revolting. There cannot be a flower which is either beautiful or ugly. There cannot be a sound that is either melodious or disharmonious. That's an impossibility. So suffering really does not exist in the world unless it is created in the mind. Therefore you needn't have any aversions towards this body, because it's not the body that causes you suffering. You needn't have any aversions towards the body. And at the same time, you don't need to have any attachments towards the body. Both desire and aversion are not things that you need to have, you ought to have towards the body. With the body, you need to be equanimous. It is not something to fight with. It's also not something to embrace. It's a tool. It's an instrument. It's a device. It's an equipment to be made use of for the right purpose. That purpose being bringing in the external stimuli to the mind. Over the course of the next week, I want you all to take a moment throughout the day, as many moments as you possibly can. Ideally, except for the time you're sleeping, I'm saying ideally, ought to be doing this all the time. As you do this, you are contemplating on the meditation practice of Kāyānupassana. You're studying the body for what it really is. It's not something to be attached to. It's not something also to get into conflict with. How do you use a screwdriver? If you want to unscrew or screw in a nail, you take a screwdriver. But just because you want to hammer a nail and what's available is a screwdriver, doesn't mean you're going to get angry with the screwdriver and throw it away. How dare you be here at this moment in time when I need a hammer? You don't say that to a screwdriver. If you don't need it, you just put it to a side. When you need it, you make use of it. You don't go to bed with it. And you don't hit it on the floor. You make use of it for what it was designed to be made use of. That is the way I want you to look at this body. When it's broken, we fix it so that we can make use of it. Just like a JCB needs lubrication from time to time, it needs oiling at various parts. This body needs a lubrication. Water, It needs food, and once it's being used, after it has been used for some time, it needs to be washed. So you need to take it under the shower. To protect it from the elements, from various insects which can cause it harm, you give it shelter and you put a covering on top of it. That is the clothes that you're wearing. Throughout the course of the next week, folks, I want you to be able to look at this body as a body which you are today having to look after, because it serves a purpose, and that purpose being bringing in sight, sound, smell, taste and touch to this person that's on the outside of the room. At the same time, I also want you to contemplate, for those of you who this may be appropriate, why one body on the inside might want to, under the command of what's on the outside, touch another body. What meaning is there in that? If you remove the eyes on the outside, would the two bodies now want to touch each other? Would they? Right, so the two people on the outside, we ask them to leave. So we disconnect the wires from this side and we leave. Now would the two bodies want to touch each other? I'm not saying they can't because there's no instruction going through the wire. That's not what I mean. What if there were? What if there was a signal? Would they still want to touch each other? These two bodies on the inside. On the inside of the room. No, they'll just stay put. The eye doesn't want to see. The ear doesn't want to hear. The nose doesn't want to smell. The tongue doesn't want to taste. The body doesn't want to touch. As a matter of fact, the more you use it, the more you reduce its lifetime. So like a bulb, I remember asking this from you a long time ago, one of our very early sermons. You see the light on the ceiling? Or the bulb rather, on the ceiling? Every bulb that comes in some kind of packaging, on it will say, this has this many hours lifetime. So that's the number of hours it can remain lit. Every time it is turned on and every time it is kept on, the duration is reduced from its lifetime, is it not? So, if a bulb could speak, and you ask the bulb, would you like me to keep you on or would you like me to keep you off? What would the bulb say? Well, the longer you keep me on, the less I get to live. So, keep me off. As much as you possibly can, please. Now, ask the same of your eyes. Ask the same of your ears and nose and tongue and the body. Your ball and socket joints, there are only so many rotations that it can make before something starts to go wrong. They have been designed and engineered to last a certain number of rotations. It's like a fan belt, on a vehicle. It's designed to be driven for a certain number of miles. So once you have rotated the ball of one of the bones in the socket of the other X number of times, there's always going to be the last time that you can rotate it before it snaps, or before it starts to crack, or before it goes dry. Now this is basic science, right? So if you ask the bones of the body, would you like to be in motion or would you like to be in one place, immobile? I think your bones will say, please leave us alone. So what interest do you think then one body has extending its arm to touch another body, to caress another body, to rub another body? Absolutely none. Zero. They have no interest in doing that. But the moment you wire these things up to the selves on the outside of the room, to the eyes on the outside of the room, now against their wish, commands are sent to those bodies to extend various limbs and appendages and touch and caress and all the rest of it. In one sense of the word, this is physical abuse. This is abuse. You've heard of drug abuse, you've heard of alcohol abuse. This is all abuse. Sensual abuse. You don't need me to tell you what some people do for the weird and wonderful things that people do for the purpose of sensual gratification. That's all physical abuse. These bodies weren't designed for those kind of things. They weren't made for that purpose. They are made for one purpose: to bring in sight, sound, smell, taste and touch from the inside to the outside. So all the rest of that is just meaningless madness. So I want you to think about these things. If it's too heavy, let it go. If you're thinking, whoa, Swaminathan, if you start thinking like that, I'm not going to be able to live a family life. Okay, then just drop that bit. Think about the rest of it. I'm here to preach to you Nibbana. Because I don't pick and choose which obstacles you want to keep in your path on the way to Nibbana. That you're going to have to pick. I'd rather not remove this obstacle, I'd rather keep it. That's your say. Whereas I'm not ready for any obstacles. Whatever is in the path, they have to go, because I am not going anywhere. So when an obstacle comes ahead in front of me, when I'm on the path, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that I'm going to move out of the way. The obstacle has to move out of the way. There's only one way this is going to end, this duel. The obstacle has to move out of the way. I'm not moving out of the way. How about you? No, your call. Your Nibbana, your call. As I said, I can only show you the path. It's up to you how you want to walk it. Because I don't know of any Arahant who also had a wife. Maybe there were, I just don't know of any. Maybe there will be in future. The way things are going, I won't be surprised. But I'm telling you the way I practice the path, because I don't read this off a book and come and teach you, oh, by the way, this is how Christopher Columbus practiced Nibbana. I'm talking about how I practice my Nibbana, how I walk the path, on my path, when I meet an obstacle, I ain't the one who's moving. The obstacle has to move. How about you? When it's a strawberry souffle between you and your Nibbana, who moves? Who? When it's a glass of red wine between you and your Nibbana, tell me, who moves? When it's a kandosba between you and your Nibbana, who moves? In my case, I don't move. No, you can sing till the cows come home, I am not moving. I will age and die, but I'm not moving. You move. I won't move. How about you? When it's you and your porn addiction, who's moving? When it's you and your various other addictions, who's moving? I'm not moving. Are you? Well, after all, it's everyone for himself or herself. I can only show you the path. Arahants weren't made by moving when obstacles came their way. Cowards were made that way. When an obstacle came their way, he who moves is called a coward. He who doesn't is either an arahant or one day becomes an arahant. Don't let anything take you off the path. It's not worth it. So, over the course of next week, here's what I would want you to do. Events will come and go in your life. Things will happen. Life flows on. I want you to observe this body. Try and think of it in terms of this body rather than my body. In the past, I have asked you to think about the things you use as the things that I use, rather than my things. Remember? Not my plate, the plate I use. You don't have to say it out loud to everyone. It's not what you say, it's what you think that matters. Your words, make sure that they comply with the conventions. Otherwise, you're going to make life hell for you. Otherwise, come and ordain. Because here there's no doubt that we're all trying to achieve our liberation. There's no doubts about that. There are no misunderstandings about that. Anyone who doesn't want to attain their Nibbana shouldn't be here. So here I'm free to say, please can you bring me the alms bowl that I use? And no one's going to turn around and say, what? You talk weird. No one's going to say that to me. Please can you bring me the robe that I wear? It's perfectly fine here. But don't try and say that at home. If you're not all on board with this. So please tell your son, Puta, can you please call Tati? Don't tell Puta, please can you call the husband that I use? He's gonna think you've eaten something wrong that's gone off. So don't go that way. So as I said, convention is for you to live. Absolute truth is for you to contemplate. One to understand, one to comprehend. Right? So the next week, this is what I want you to do. With everything you do, this is why I said, do it as much as you possibly can. Okay? And that does not mean by the end of this sermon, that's all I can do. So, it's just do the sermon. I'll come back and see what you have for me next week. Keep doing that. For as long as these sermons are on, and after that, that will be it. So, as you go about your day-to-day activities and chores, as you have your meals, as you take a wash, dress yourself up, sit down, stand up, walk, see how things are happening to your body or the body. And when you experience things, sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, see if you can take a moment to break down the process. How things come in through the 5 sense doors, they're carried through the wire, and then they come to the mind. Also begin to contemplate on how ignorance and attachment, which cause suffering, are clearly not on the outside. They are factors of the mind. We will build up on that in the future sermons. But the more you practice this, the more Kāyānupassana is cultivated in your mind. If nothing else, but you're able to break this sentimental connection between mind and body, that alone is enough for you to achieve states as high as Anagami. But it happens if you do it. Now I have showed you the way. I've showed you the path. Here's the torch. Now walk. If you stay put, come back next week. We'll be much further down the road and we'll holler at you. And then the farther we go, the more faint we will sound to you, because you won't be able to hear us. Because we'll be further down the road. You'll be right where we started. And it'll all become very faint. So if you're not understanding some of the things we are saying, that's what I mean by faint. Practice. There's no other way out of this. You have to practice. You have to practice. It's no good just to listen to the sermon and let the week go by and come back for another sermon. This is not a takeaway. Okay? So, Be a good student, just as I am. I'm a good student. That's why I ask you to be a good student. I'm always practicing. I don't let a moment go by. As I said, when obstacles come in my path, I am not the one who moves. The obstacle has to move. We can stand there all day looking at each other in the eye. I am moving. Try and see how much of that you can develop. Start with little things. If you know you've had enough, why do you go for that extra serving? You know, it's a joke to be saying, I'm listening to the sermons and then go and have that extra serving. That's a joke, folks. It really is. I know there'll be people who'll do like that. They listen to the sermon, and then when they want that extra serving of ice cream, then they don't need it. But just because it's ice cream, they'll walk up to the fridge and serve that extra serving. That's a joke. You might as well go on Britain's Got Talent. Because everyone will laugh at you and give you a good applause. Oh, well done, nice joke. You might as well be a stand-up comedian. That's a joke. Really is. Particularly when you know that what you're doing is wrong. When you know that now there's an obstacle in the path, I'll just wait for next week's sermon. Don't be that one. Remember, you're not kidding me, you're kidding yourself. You know, there's one thing that's impossible in this world. You can't fool a teacher. It's impossible to do that. Because what happens if you try? Who are you fooling? See? You can't fool a teacher. Try if you can. I dare you. Try and see if you can fool a teacher. No matter what, you know, whether it's a subject you learn somewhere at school, university, or, you know, in the Dhamma. See if you can fool a teacher. It's an impossibility. It's like trying to get the sun to rise from the west. It's impossible. Because the moment you try to fool, who's being fooled? You're getting some of your own medicine. That's what I'm saying, you know, just listening to the sermons and not practicing. Please, I don't mean that this is what everyone's like. I know a lot of people out there, particularly the regulars who either come to the monastery or listen to these sermons regularly. I know you guys, you do put in a lot of time and effort into these things and to practice your path, and you take this seriously. I'm just saying, don't make Nibbana a joke, because Nibbana will make a joke out of you then. Particularly, don't mess around with the Dhamma. Don't make Nibbana a joke. The one thing you oughtn't do. Because we're always used to making, having a joke about everything in our lives, right? With our parents, with our teachers, right? Everywhere we go, we try and make a joke and a laugh about it. There's one place where you shouldn't do that. And that's with the Dhamma, that's with Nibbana. If you try and make a joke out of it, you are the joke. You need to fight. You need to be courageous. You need to be determined. Because every time you're able, you make that jump over that hurdle, that's one more hurdle you've passed. You're that much closer to Nibbana. But if you fail at that hurdle, you're that much further away from Nibbana. That's as simple can be. Let's imagine you sat down to read a book, right? Let's say Suduminisu. Right? The book's out there. I know most of you are reading it or have read it. Right? As the book comes to you, now You want to inhale the smell of a new book. So what do? You turn the page and you hold it to your nose. You know at the back of your mind, what you're doing is wrong, because what you're trying to do is experience pleasure. And you're giving in. You're kidding with the Dhamma now. You're kidding with your Nibbana now. There's no point doing that and then saying, I'll come back and listen to the sermon Sunday. As you go shopping, right, once you've gotten the things you need, I'm not saying you shouldn't buy ice cream. I'm not saying that. Get ice cream if you need ice cream. But if you need ice cream, then there's a problem. If there are others at home, get ice cream. Fine. And when everyone else is eating, it's perfectly fine. Have some yourself. You don't have to be, I'm the one who doesn't eat ice cream at home. Hello, doesn't everyone know that? You don't need to be like that. Don't be the odd one out. Get some ice cream. But if you, while you're eating that, feel like you need to go for a second serving, and you step towards the fridge, and you open it, and you take out the box, and you soup some ice cream, and you put it in your cup, and you come back, sit down, and you start shoveling that into your mouth, and then you say, I'll listen to the sermon next Sunday and all will be fine. No, it won't be fine. Because you have failed where you needed to have won. This is what I mean by practice. 15 minutes is good, but what about all the other 23 hours and 45 minutes? 15 minutes, you sit down, anicca dukkha anatta, anicca dukkha anatta, anicca dukkha anatta. Rest of the time, nicca sukha atta, nicca sukha atta, nicca sukha atta. Which way are you going if you're 5 steps forward, 1 step back? Which way are you going? Now you're going forward. But what if you are going 1 step forward, 5 steps back? Now which way are you going? Yeah, but I'm going, yeah, but you're going 4 steps back. That's where you're going. And I'll agree with you. You can go a long way on the path to Nibbana in a lay life. But don't kid with yourself. Okay? Don't come up with excuses. But Sunday sermon, I'll listen to that and everything will be fine. No, everything won't be fine. Listen to the sermons and you're not doing what you're asked to be doing, nothing's going to be fine. You'll feel like your mind has become, your mind settles down and it's very calm and peaceful at the end of the sermon. But how are you feeling towards Wednesday, Thursday in the week? Friday? If you're practicing the Dhamma, then yes, indeed. But if you're not, you're just waiting for next Sunday to come along, you have a long way to go. I'm not admonishing you. I'm trying to encourage you. I don't want to give you baby talk. Because what's the point? I want to say it to you as it is. I think that is what you ask of me. I don't want to sugarcoat things for you. I don't want to make it look like everything is, a rose bush, a bed of roses. I don't want to make it look like that when it isn't. I want to give it to you as it is. The honest truth. You can't mess around with this stuff, folks. Whatever your capacity is, do it to the best of your ability. Don't kid around, because the more you kid around, you're the one who's being kidded with. Remember, the Dhamma is your teacher. So don't try to trick your teacher. Don't try to fool your teacher. Every time you try to fool your teacher, it's you who's being fooled. It's like the self. You cannot create the self. Every time you try to create the self, what you're creating is suffering. Similarly, every time you try to trick your teacher, what's happening is you're tricking yourself. You're fooling yourself. You're making a fool of yourself. Don't be that person. Again, I don't mean all of you are like that, but there may be one or two among you who are like that, and I'm talking to you. If this sounds like you, then it probably is you. If this doesn't sound like you, then fine. Put it to the side, you might need it later. And every week I'll give you advice. Every week I'll give you advice. Next week also I'll give you advice. The next week I'll give you advice. Next week I'll give you advice. The following week I'll give you advice. The following week I won't be here to give you advice. Now what are you going to do? Oh, but we have the recording, Swamin. Of course. Of course. You have the recordings, don't you? Yes. I forgot. I remember, this is just a side point, when Deshakatuma first started to preach, he was against sermons being recorded. Reason? Because when you turn on that recorder, you automatically go into hibernate mode, mentally. Because what your mind tells you is, it's okay if I miss this because it's in the recording. So then you don't pay full attention. Then you miss the most important points that are being delivered for your salvation. You miss them. Listening to a recording is not the same as listening to it live. You know that now because you don't get to come to the monastery, don't you? You know what you're going through now, listening to these sermons online or on a recording, you realize you're going to have to do it for real one day, right? You won't have another choice that day, right? You know that. You want to attain Nibbana the easy way or the hard way? I know you all want to attain Nibbana. Yes, that is very praiseworthy, very commendable. I agree. You all want to attain Nibbana. Do you want to do it the easy way or the hard way? Like it isn't hard enough? Your call. Your Nibbana, your call. Decide and... No, I'm not going to say tell me. Decide and do what you like. Because ultimately it's your call. What you do is for your salvation. What I do is for mine. We'll help each other, but you must walk the path if you want to make progress. Listen to the sermons, not practicing, isn't going to get you anywhere. Please do bear that in mind. Okay, let us transfer the merits then. I have given you some work to do for next week. Please make some time to do it. Don't forget, at least an hour a day. If you can't keep your focus throughout the day, at least 15 minutes. Put an alarm on your phone as a reminder. 15 minutes, Kāyānupassana. This is in addition to that 15 minutes, the regular 15. Right, Kāyānupassana. You can be doing anything at that time. You don't need to sit down. You can be washing. You can be washing your clothes. You can be cooking. You can be eating. You can be doing anything. I don't mind if you are brushing your teeth at that time. Doesn't matter. Look at how the body is functioning. Inside, outside room. Look at how the wires are connected and what's flowing between them. Think about some of the things I asked you to do, the way I asked you to reflect on it. As you're watching TV, maybe the 15 minutes you have is one or a teledrama. Look at what people are doing to each other. Can you see the backward? One guy's hugging another guy. Really? Is that what's really happening? A guy's holding a girl's hand. Really? Is that what's really happening? A mother's kissing her child on the forehead. Really? Is that what's happening? Can you see the drivers pulling on the levers? Break it down. Be analytical. Okay, let's transfer the merits and bring the sermon to a close. Okay. Let us all take a moment then to transfer all the merits that we have acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirit, listening to the Dhamma and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. First and foremost, let us remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teaching. With immense gratitude, let us transfer these merits to the bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha and passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is available thankfully to us today to study, understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let us also transfer these merits to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all the chapters who have dedicated their lives to the noble path and have committed themselves towards the betterment of all sentient beings. Let us not forget that among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin. Let us also transfer these merits to Guru Swamin Wahanse and all other monks resident at this monastery, as well as the Anagarikas and Anagarikas attached to the monastery. Let us take a moment to transfer these merits and express our gratitude to those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, be that by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. And may through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in the woeful plane, redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us all take a moment to transfer the merits we have acquired to our devotees, the friends of our monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha, including everyone of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, to those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, arms, robes and medicines, as well as all those who have passed on their know-how and extend their well wishes. May through the power of these merits they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also not forget to take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins and various other relations, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers and employees, and to all those who have helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way, shape or form that was possible to them. May through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and may they all attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer messages to the Devas, Brahmas, spirits, and the demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Shasana. Let us also transfer messages to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let us also take a moment to transfer messages to our ancestors who have predeceased us, to all who have been our families, friends and acquaintances in this infinitely long journey in samsara, to whom we are deeply indebted, as they have helped us, supported us, assisted us in any way, shape or form they could. Let us transfer all these merits to them. Let us also transfer merits to the members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives on numerous occasions to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all who have lost their lives in the war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits we have acquired today. Let us transfer merits to all those who have lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, as well as the pandemics, including that which is ongoing, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in this long journey in samsara. Let us take a moment to wish them well and transfer merits to them. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in woeful planes, redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May through the power of these blessings they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the Noble Eightfold Path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let us all resolve that may through the power of the merits we have all acquired today and the blessings that we have all accumulated today, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahatun Vahanses in this blessed land in our very lives itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, may through the power of all the merits we have acquired today, you and I and everyone who has helped make this program as successful as they could by making whatever contributions in their capacity, however large or small, or passing on their well wishes, or ultimately resolving to achieve their own liberation, become an Arahatun Vahanse, an Arahat Mehenin Vahanse, in this very life itself and the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem be with you all forever. We will now conclude the sermon.